The SetPower X50 fridge, freezer, and cooler. Is this something you need? We'll find out in a moment. We've got the SetPower X50 and it's their 50-quart cooler. But it's much more than just a cooler. It's also a fridge and will even pull down to be a freezer. Yes, this thing will run all the way down to -4 degrees, so way beyond freezing. And it will also go up and maintain as high as 68 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what in the world you would want to maintain at 68. I don't want to drink a drink at 68. Anyway, it'll go down as low as -4, up as high as 68 and maintain that. And it's going to do that off of 12 volts, 120 volts, or off the battery pack right here on the front. Now let's take a closer look at the features that this thing has. Then we'll come back and we'll talk about runtime and about pricing and what we thought of it. This is the SetPower X50, so it's not only a cooler, but it's also a refrigerator and a freezer. And it not only runs on 12 volts, so you can plug it into the cigarette lighter or the accessory power in your car and run on 12 volts, but it also runs on 120 volts because you have a transformer right here, much like your laptop charger. So it runs on 12 or 120. But also, this little guy right here is a battery. So this is a 12 volt, 52,000 milliamp battery. So this cooler will run on battery. It will run on your 12 volt battery from your car off the accessory port, or it will run on 120 volts. So you can unplug this thing, take it out on the job site, take it on the campsite, take it out to the courts or ballpark or wherever you are, and it will stay very cool, even cold. It'll get down to -4 and go up to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. You can also set it to Celsius, but it will freeze. So not only will it refrigerate, but it will also freeze. Now let's take a closer look at some of these features. I'll raise the lid here. By the way, it's got a locking lid on it. So to lift the lid, I can't just push on it. Got to do a little lift here and that unlocks it and we can lift it up. So that's nice. If it's getting rocked around a little bit in your vehicle, it's going to stay latched. So I can lift this up. As I mentioned, the name is the X50, which means it's a 50-quart cooler. And what does that mean? Well, supposedly like 87 cans of Coke or beer or whatever you're holding, and probably a little less of water bottles, somewhere around 55 water bottles. But I just wanted to point this out because, as I mentioned about the locking lid, and then we have a seal around the top as well. That is a foam seal. I would much rather it be a rubber, but it does seem to be a very firm foam. But over time, that may degrade and, you know, kind of keep its memory where it doesn't come back, where it kind of sinks in and shrivels up. But that'll probably be years to come. I just wanted to point that out. Much rather see rubber there. But again, it is a nice firm foam. I'm not sure why we have a gap right there in the coverage of the foam, but there is a small gap where it meets in the middle over here that's just hard plastic. So a little bit of an air leak there, I'm sure, but we really haven't noticed any issues with that, but wanted to point that out. Now, since it is a fridge freezer, then it does have a compressor. And we'll take a look on the inside here in a few moments. But that compressor resides right here. There's a control panel on the top. And again, we'll show that here in one moment. But right in here, we have a compressor. We have a condenser coil here on the back side. We also have a fan. Looks a lot like a PC fan that resides here in the back as well. We'll take a closer look at that here in a moment also. This is where we're going to plug in either the transformer for 120 volt or for our 12 volt. I did notice when I push this in, there's a little bit of flex here, you know, in this panel. Don't really like that, but it's not anything that's bothersome, if you will. It doesn't seem to cause any issues, but I just noticed some flex, but I think it's because we're right there in the middle of that grill, so we don't have a lot of reinforcement there. Even though there's a hole there, I don't believe there's supposed to be a screw there. Maybe in another model or something it should. But I did notice that it never came with a screw, but even on the back side, it doesn't look like it would receive a screw. So I don't think that's a missing piece, but again, maybe for a different model where they use the same cover. Here on the back of the cooler, we'll find a couple of things here. Number one, we have a retractable handle, and it's got 2 stages where it locks. So we push the button there, it locks down here at the bottom, it locks here, and then we have a second or third stage, whether you call the first one a stage or not. But anyway, so it's going to lock up there as well. Push the button and collapse that all the way down. Here's a bottle opener right here. So if I pitch this up, you'll see that we have a bottle opener. And then I'm not really sure what this is other than maybe a key ring holder, something where you can hang things, which, hey, makes a little sense. As well as these here. There's nothing in the manual that shows anything here, but I'm assuming something like a cord wrap or something that will even kind of hang down in there. I have taken the 2 chargers, so like my 120 volt charger, and put a reusable zip tie on it. And then when I store the cooler, I just kind of hang it like that. And the same way with the 12 volt charger, kind of always stays with it. And then I kind of got them hanging back there, and that's how I'm making use of whatever those cord wraps are. I do know a lot of people will use solar panels to kind of keep these powered up. So maybe that's what that is for, you know, solar panel, a wrap or something like that. I'm not sure. Somebody else can maybe tell me what these things are hanging here, and it may make sense to a lot of people. Let's get a quick external dimension on this. And from the bottom to the top, right at 23 inches. And if you look from front to back with the handle, right about 15 inches if you look to the back side of the handle here. So 15, 23 tall, 15 inches deep, and about 23 and a half or 24 inches the full width, with where the handles kind of stick out and protrude right here. And as you can see, the built-in handles right here on the cooler to make it easy to grab. A couple of things about the wheels here. Number one, they are 6 inches, so you get a decent sized wheel in this that's going to roll rather easily, and it does roll very easy. These are also rubber caps. So right here, it's not plastic, it is rubber, so it does have a decent feel to it. It doesn't feel like you're scratching the floor when you're rolling across, say, a wood floor or something. So it does have a little grip to it. And one of the things I really like about this is if you look all the way across the back here, the wheels stick out beyond the back of the cooler. And here's the back of the handle as well. So it even protrudes past that handle. Why is that important? Well, it's important so when you tilt it a little bit, that obviously it still keeps it off the ground. It's not dragging anything, but you could do that just by barely radiusing the bottom of the cooler. The important thing to me is when you're traversing stairs, and that allows the wheels to roll up the face of those stairs and onto the treads versus you just kind of dragging it along, because a lot of times those treads stick out beyond the face of the stair or the uprights, and so a lot of times it will hit here, where these wheels protruding backwards make that a lot easier when, again, like I mentioned, you are going up a set of stairs or down as well to keep you from, you know, dragging the cooler or dragging the handle along. Let's get a weight on this. So with nothing in the compressor, we're looking at a little over almost 36 pounds. Now that is with the battery in there. So cooler and battery, nothing in the cooler, 35 pounds. Now we're going to have a look kind of under the hood, if you will. So I am going to pull this battery out, which, by the way, you can see it locks into place. Just take this ring, turn it, and pull that out, and you can pull out the battery. And as I mentioned, we're going to take a look underneath the hood. So I'm going to take out some screws here. So I pulled out the 3 screws here, and there's 3 screws under the lid. And let's see if we can get this out of the way here. Yeah, cool. Okay, so here's all our control board up here, and all the wires hooked to it. Here's our charger. By the way, decent sized wires. Looks like 14 gauge wire probably going to that charger. Decent connections on here, so like that. And then also decent sized wires going down here. Looks like that's probably got a heat sink there, so maybe some sort of transformer, just another control board, but a very decent aluminum heat sink right there, dissipating a lot of heat. And we have a baby compressor. So there's our compressor that's doing all the heavy lifting or the refrigerating of the unit. And we even have a coil here. So this should be our condenser coil right here that is taking care of doing the compression of the gases. And as I mentioned before, it looked like a PC fan, a little like a PC fan on steroids, I guess. But good sized fan, just for you geeks out there. Looks like 4 1/4 inch fan, maybe 4 1/2, 4 1/4, something like that. So decent sized fan to keep things cool and to keep things condensing. But not a bad looking system. We got some wires going right here. I would think there, it looks like there's a power wire, and that's probably a sensor wire. So I'm imagining this is probably going to our temperature sensor, and there's an LED light inside the cooler. So I would bet that that's what those are right there going inside there. Anyway, just wanted to take a look under the hood. Make sure you don't pinch any wires if you do this. And it kind of slides down and locks into place. So even without the screws in it, it shouldn't move around. Okay, so we've got the cooler open. I've got a couple of tools in here to help warm things up a little bit so it's not so cold when we turn it on. Because I've had it running, I want it to warm up a little. Here we have a drain plug. So there's a drain plug down here. If you have something in there that spills, or maybe you were storing ice and it's melted, you put warm stuff in it, whatever, you don't have to tip it over. You can just pull this out. It's just got a double O-ring, let it drain, and push that back in, and you're good to go. Makes it very easy for those situations where you do have liquid in it. Otherwise, that's the nice thing about having one of these, is you don't have to have ice. You don't have to be, be dealing with melting ice all the time, because it's going to keep all your drinks cool. And when you pull that water bottle out, it doesn't have water all over it. Or worse, that Gatorade bottle. We have an LED light right here that's shining here into the cooler. So every time you open the lid, it's going to shine that and turn off when you close the lid. The width of the cooler is right at 18.5 inches. Depth of the cooler is right at 10 inches. And then as far as height, right here on this end, we're right at 17 inches. And over here where the cooling compressor is, it's going to be right at 12 inches tall, a little more than 12 inches tall over here. You can see here's our foam insert here around our lid with a little, you can see a little indentation there, and that's because of this plastic ridge here that seals against that. It keeps all your cold air in and keep your heat from getting in the cooler. You can see the little green light on for our battery, and by the way, there's a little battery gauge there as well. You can push that and see that, but we'll see it here on the control panel in 1 second. So right now we've got the battery plugged into the machine. We've got no other power running to it. So let's power up the unit. I'm going to hold this button down and it's going to power up, and you can see we're at 46 degrees in the cooler, and we're running on eco mode, and that little L there tells us we're in the low battery saver mode, and we'll go over that here in just one moment. Now let me go ahead and pull these tools out, and we'll go ahead and shut this lid. And as we talk here, maybe we'll see the temperature start to drop here in the cooler. All right, we're at 46 degrees. We also see that the status of our battery, and by the way, I've had it running on the battery for several hours today, and as you can see, it's down to 9.7 volts and roughly 50% of our battery life left. We're also running in eco mode, so there's two speeds to this compressor. It can run in max mode. It can also run in eco, and this L here, there's a low, medium, and high, and that's basically a battery saver for your vehicle if you're plugged into 12 volts. So I'm going to hold the settings button down. It's going to start flashing, and now I can hit plus to go to max, or minus to go to eco, or actually you can just push the button repeatedly and it'll cycle between those two. Let me go back into these settings. Once you let it sit for 3 or 4 seconds, it will go back. So now we're in eco mode. So in eco mode, it's going to run at that low speed constantly. So in other words, when you've got a large temperature differentiation, that max mode is going to run a little harder till it gets there. So in other words, make up that difference faster than the eco mode will, but it's still going to get to the same set point. It will just do it quicker. But it's nice that we do have an eco and a max, because that's going to save if you want to, or if you have it plugged in, you can run it in max and get it to that set point of say 32 degrees or wherever you want it, and then it will go into its own again that lower mode to conserve electricity. And by the way, that range that you're looking at, like say 40 watts versus say 65 watts in max mode, so it's still not running a lot or pulling a lot of power, but it is pulling a bit more in that max mode. Now right now it's the temperature reading in the cooler, but if I push my plus or minus, that's our set point on the temperature. And so I like to run it somewhere around 32. Don't want my water freezing, but I want it near freezing. And then in a moment, now it's going back to the actual ambient temperature that's in the cooler. Now, if I want to go into the battery protection mode, again, I'm going to hold my settings button down here for a few seconds, and I'm going to hit that again, and now it's going to flash the L, and so that's where I can cycle from low, medium, or high. Now, if I have it on high, they have a little chart here. So let's say you have this plugged into your vehicle, and you're walking away, you're going shopping or something. You want it to run and stay cool, but you don't want to come back to a dead battery in your vehicle. And so in the high mode, you can see that it won't start up if your battery's not at least 12.4 volts. And it's also going to cut the system off, cut the refrigeration off when it gets down to 11.1 volts. So that's your high protection mode. And you can bring that all the way down to low to where it cuts off at 8.5 volts and won't start up the compressor, won't start up the refrigerator unless it's at least 10.9 volts. So that's nice protection to be built into there where it will actually cut the unit off when it needs to. So you can see we've got an E1 reading on our screen there. Now let's go here. It says low input voltage error. The input DC voltage is below the protection setting and the battery protection is activated. So you can see not only the battery in your car, but now it's cut off the battery here because I'm in high. So let's change that. And we'll put it down in low. We pull the battery out and I'm going to put it back in. And now we're running again in eco mode and in a low battery protection mode. Something else cool is that right here we have a USB port. So obviously we could charge our phone off of that USB or whatever device we need to. But also right here, this pad, it will wirelessly charge the phones that will accept that just by laying right there. And then as I mentioned, if you don't have wireless charging, you can use the USB there to charge your device. And by the way, so the few minutes we've been talking, and I may have had a couple of edits in here, but not many, you can see we've already pulled down to the 32 degrees that I had as the set point. And let's roll this over here and we'll raise up our lid. And we can see right here, we have now frost forming on the edge of the cooler. Our nice humid Florida air is always going to condensate. And then we'll put this water bottle in here. But the walls, you can see the walls are right at 32 degrees down there. Now if I get up higher, it's like 67 degrees. So that will continue to come down, but that's right up to the top edge at 80 degrees. But down here we're at 34, 33, 32. And our water bottle, whoo, it's a hot 67 degrees. This is a magnetically controlled LED light. So we have a light right here behind the surface of the cooler. And when I get down to about right there, it's off and then it turns on. There's no manual switch in here. That's a magnetic switch that's calling that to come on. Right now we're running in eco mode. Set point's at 30 degrees and we're at 32. Let's run our set point down. You know what? Let me go ahead and change out of eco mode. So I'm going to hold my settings button down, hit plus. Now we're in max and let that set for a second and should lock on max. There we are. And let's just run this on down. Now our set point's at 7 degrees. So compressor's running, fan's running. Don't know if you can hear that, but it's running. Let's take a closer look. Okay, so the compressor and the fan is running. Got it right on the mic. So it looks like about 58 decibels is the max. The fan back here. So even running in max, you're looking at about 58 decibels max. Very quiet machine. When we first got in the SetPower X50, I thought, you know, this could be a great thing for just about anyone because it's going to work well in the shop. It's going to work well on a job site. It's going to work well on the campsite, in the boat. You name it, about anywhere that things are warm, this is going to be a great item if it works the way they claim. And I'll be honest with you, this is not marketing speech here. It works better than what they claim, and here's what I mean by that. My big thing on this is, I get it. We can buy a cooler anywhere. You can go to any street corner at the gas station and buy a cheapy styrofoam cooler, and just about on every box store you can buy some rendition of some type of knockoff Yeti cooler that you want to, and they all perform pretty well. So that's not really the niche here. The niche here is the number one, we can use 12 volt power, so plug it into our truck or in our car, in the boat. We could use 120 volts, which any socket outlet on any job site or in any home, but also the battery here. And how long is that going to last? Because if that runs for 2 hours, who cares? Just call it a cooler, right? It's really not a refrigerator anymore, because if it's only going to run about 2 hours, well, that's probably not going to help us out, because the third time somebody reaches in to grab a water or whatever beverage they want, that's not going to help us much. They claim it will run 8 hours, and I will tell you, I've run this thing in the ground the last couple of weeks. I've taken it on the pickleball courts with me. I've taken it on different occasions with me. I've put it in hot vehicles all day long in the Florida sun, and it's been in the, feels like hundreds, several days and weeks here in Central Florida. It's just been a hot box here. Our humidity's out of control here. And every time I runtime test this, I'm beyond 10 hours. So running on a battery with things in the cooler, and not even maxed out, because people are going to ask about runtime, and it's really going to vary. If you have this thing loaded up with frozen foods, it's probably going to run on that battery a long time, because just like your freezer at home, the more frozen foods you have in there, the more of an insulator that is. And it's going to help keep that refrigerator freezer running more efficiently. The same with this. Got a lot of frozen stuff in there, it's going to run even longer. Now, if you put 60 degree, 80 degree, 100 degree water in there and have to use this to bring it down, it's going to run longer and therefore consume more electricity or more power out of the battery. So it really depends on what you're doing. But as I mentioned, I would throw ambient water in there and only say 10 or 12 water bottles, maybe even 20, and go out to the courts or go out to the lake, whatever. And this thing would pull that down, and number one, it pulls down really quick. I've been impressed with that as well. In fact, it'll go from, say, 85 degrees down to 32 degrees in less than 15 minutes, or right at 15 minutes anyway. So that's impressive. I'm not telling you if you throw hot items in there, it's going to pull down that fast. But as far as the cooler itself, it will pull down within 15 minutes from 85, 90 degrees down to 32 degrees. So I've been very impressed with the runtime on this. Again, that's going to vary depending on how you use it, but I have used it in the hot sun and in the hot shop, and it still runs well beyond 10 hours, and they were claiming just 8. Now, price on this, it's stout. It's a $700 cooler when you buy the cooler and the battery. I wouldn't buy this cooler without the battery. That's the whole niche to me, is that I'm able to run on 3 different power modes, 12 volts, 120, or this battery. So I know that's steep. It's probably not for everyone, but the idea of being able to throw this in the truck, I love being able to pick a drink up out of here and not have water run all over the place on you. I don't have ice and water to clean up. I don't have to buy ice. I just throw this in the truck, I plug it in, or I don't plug it in and just run it off the battery, and that's it. Check it out. We'll have a link in the description where you can buy this. I believe you can buy it on Amazon or on their website. We'll probably even have a discount code in there that might help you out as well. Also, keep track of us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you don't mind, would you also hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't done so already? And by all means, if you hated our video, then give us a thumbs down. But would you let us know in the comments why? Have a great day and keep smiling.